Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Pada Shankaram Loka Shankaram Atmaswarupa Bandhugana. I feel very happy to be part of this important session on the auspicious day of Shankara Jayanti, Vaishakha Shukla Panchami. And you all must have noticed the two speakers who spoke very briefly made very significant remarks about the relationship between science and spirituality. Very eye-opening and very significant remarks they made. And I am personally very pleased to hear them speak the vision of Vijnana Bharati. So now today is Shankara Jayanti, and the topic is of science and spirituality. So I speak it spontaneously, extemporaneous, but still I would look at this topic in three different ways, into three parts. Part one could be, there is no conflict between science and spirituality. On the other hand, there is only resonance and synchronance between science and the complementary nature between science and spirituality. I always felt, I studied the Bhashyas of Shankara with the tutelage of great scholars, very orthodox scholars of Vedanta, and so Shri Ganti Murti has referred to the Shastra Paddhati and the peer review. He compared it with the peer review of the science literature. So I studied the Vedanta in that Shastra Paddhati, and I have also known that Shastra Paddhati deeply, and having seen all that, I have come to one conclusion. The conclusion is, unless a person has some understanding of physics, some rudimentary understanding of physics, without that understanding and without the consequent scientific spirit, mere scholarship in our ancient Shastras is not enough to give that spiritual realization. This is what I found. This is what I felt. Because I met the great scholars. Some of the scholarship I have acquired from them only, but still they could not see the vision. They could not understand the vision which they themselves are talking whole life. They could not understand it fully without any iota of doubt. They could not realize it in themselves only because of lack of scientific spirit. I always felt these great scholars, these great ancient scholars, instead of orthodoxical obscurantism, if only they had a little scientific spirit, had they studied a little physics or chemistry, their understanding of Vedanta would have been much more brilliant, and they could have guided the society, our society, much better than what they had been doing all these years. And more importantly, due to the lack of that scientific spirit, in spite of being great scholars of the ancient Vedic sciences like Vyakarana, Nyaya, Vedanta, etc., in spite of all that scholarship, they somehow support segregation and differentiation instead of calling for unity, inclusiveness, harmony, etc. in the wide Hindu society. Today what Hindu society needs is harmony, samarasata, inclusiveness. That is what Hindu society needs today. It is the need of the hour. And the Indic knowledge systems should contribute to that harmony and inclusiveness. Instead, due to orthodoxical obscurantism, as I said that expression one time, if they add to segregation, that is a great misfortune. That should not happen. But if it is happening here and there, that is only because of lack of scientific spirit. Therefore, it is very important to look at the complementary nature of science and spirituality, and therefore this session has an important path-breaking significance. That is how I feel. I wish the elders of the Vijnana Bharati, they are all great scholars, as it has become very much evident in the short 2 speeches that we have heard. They make note of this point even while paying all due respect to Indian knowledge systems, etc. They keep this as the watchword, namely harmony and inclusiveness. We need it. Because due to lack of harmony and inclusiveness, the Hindus are getting differentiated. And so that should not happen. And we should not contribute to differentiation in the Hindu society in the name of Indic systems. And that does an injustice to the Indic systems. Anyway, I have this habit of digression. I don't want to digress too much. I made the precautionary statement. Now I will say, every dharma, there is the first one, then the second and the third. The first one is every dharma, or you may call culture, has 3 elements in it. The first one is the ritualism. We try to worship the higher power. You may call it by any name, you may call it God, or you may call it Rama or Krishna, or you may call it Durga or Shakti. By any name you call it. The human heart, it wants to worship that higher power. And therefore, there is what is called a scheme of worship called ritualism, called karma. And then the human heart is devoted to that higher power. There is that inner, karma is physical and it is outer. Whereas the devotion, bhakti or upasana is inner. And it belongs to the heart rather. Whereas karma belongs to the outer objects and the hands and legs, the karmendriyas. So karmendriyas, the outer objects, etc., they are very gross. And from the gross we go to the subtle. From stula we move to the sukshma. And so the subtle aspect of the human being is his loving nature, and so the devotion. So we want to be devoted in life to that higher power, and that devotion is called bhakti or upasana. Upasana is the Vedic word, bhakti is more popular word, more recent word rather. Upasana is most ancient, but both mean the same. Upasana or bhakti, that is the second element of any dharma or culture. And the third element is the spirituality. And that means another word to explain the word spirituality, it is the same as philosophy, jnana. So there are 3 elements in every dharma: karma, bhakti, jnana. Now, among these 3 elements, the first 2 constitute one unit. They are together. They are always together. one of the mantras of the Vijnana Bharati, avidyaya mrityuntertva vidyayamrutamashnute vidyancha yastadvedo bhayagum saha. That is the first line. So that avidya is the karma and vidya is the upasana. In the mantra of the Ishavasya Upanishad, it recommends, it mandates that karma and upasana should go together. They should remain together. They are always together. The togetherness of karma and upasana, the ritualism and mythology is the name. Mythology, ritualism and mythology. So they go together and they constitute the nitty-gritty of the religion. They constitute the religion. And the jnana constitutes the spirituality. Now, did I put it correctly without confusing you? There is a karma and upasana. I will be using those words, karma and bhakti, let us say. That is the religion aspect, the religion as followed by the people at large. And then there is the spirituality, which is a jnana. This is how you take the three elements into two groups. Three elements constitute two groups. Karma plus bhakti, one group, and jnanam is an independent entity by itself. Now, in the Hindu Dharma, since millennia, since Buddha is 525 BC, then Shankara, I sincerely feel that Shankara is BC, not AD. That is the intrinsic evidence that comes from Brahma Sutras, etc. Anyway, without going into that topic, so Shankara, and then there are many such great scholars of the golden age of Indian society, that is BC 300 to AD 600, that 700, 800, 900 years period, that is the golden age. And during that period flourished, of course, Shankara, Buddha came earlier than that, and many other philosophers have flourished at that time. Kalidasa, the great poet, was of that time. And then Varaha Mihira and Aryabhata, these great astronomers, not astrologers, the astronomers, the scientists of that time. That was the time when mathematics was flourishing in India, and from India it went to Arabia, and from Arabia it went to Europe. And the Europeans believe that mathematics is Arabian. No, mathematics is Arabian for them, but for the Arabia, mathematics is Hindu. The Hindu mathematics became Arabian mathematics, and then it became European mathematics. So that was the period when the religion and spirituality were hand in hand. They were supportive of each other. There is never even a hint of conflict between the two. In fact, the ritualism, let us say, the ritualism should never be disassociated from philosophy, from jnana. It should always be combined with jnana. And so this combination of ritualism with philosophy is called karma yoga. You all know that. And then the mythology, which is also called bhakti or upasana, should never ever be divorced from jnana. It should be always inspired by the jnana. Jnana is the redeeming factor. Without jnana, the karma becomes mechanical and silly. Karma becomes mechanical, silly, and it even attracts ridicule. The people, without having any understanding, when they perform karma, that karma appears ridiculous, and it only brings out ridicule, nothing more than that. Some silly such karma, you can see a lot of such karma, unfortunately, in the present-day Hindu society, because in the present-day Hindu society, in spite of many gurus and religious icons and all that, the karma upasana part is divorced from the philosophy to a large extent. Therefore, karma looks ridiculous, and silly, and it becomes mechanical without association, when it is not inspired by the philosophy jnana. Therefore, we always insisted on karma yoga, not on karma. And mythology or bhakti or upasana, without the blessing of jnana, it becomes dogmatic and andhavishwasa. So it becomes blind belief, it becomes. And there is no worth in blind belief systems. However religious fervor people may have, if it is a blind belief, that doesn't bring any merit to anybody. And so, therefore, it is always insisted that bhakti, the mythology, must be blessed by the philosophy jnana. That's why we have the word bhakti yoga. Therefore, in the Hindu ethos of that golden age, the ancient Hindu ethos, in that it is not karma, it is always karma yoga. And it was not bhakti, it was always bhakti yoga. And therefore, karma plus bhakti is the religion and the jnana is the philosophy. There was never any conflict, any hint of conflict between the two just doesn't exist. To understand the significance of this synthesis, or if not synthesis, this unity, this complementary nature of religion and spirituality. Religion consisting of karma and bhakti, spirituality, jnanam, there is a beautiful synthesis. It's a glory you can understand. If you see a case where there is no complementary nature, instead there is a conflict between the two. If you go to Europe of the Middle Ages, there was a conflict between religion consisting of ritualism and mythology with philosophy. Therefore, if you see, for example, Galileo, the 17th century Italian scientist, he said, Earth is spherical, not flat. He was the first man to know that Earth is spherical, not flat, in the Western hemisphere. In the East, in India, in the Hindu ethos, Earth is always a sphere, bhugolam. Bhu is always a gola. Bhu is never flat for us. It is always bhugola. It was very clear. Even children knew that because they used the word gola. Gola is a sphere. But Galileo, when he said Earth is spherical, he was punished by the Vatican for saying such a thing. It was considered heretic to say Earth is spherical. And he was obliged to recant his thesis and his views in a public forum. He has to recant. And the church has banned his books and condemned Galileo to a life of seclusion. Such a thing is unheard of, not even unthinkable in the Hindu ethos of the ancient India. And then Giordano Bruno, the 16th century Italian scientist and philosopher, he's a martyr of his scientific beliefs. Martyrs of scientific understanding, you find them only in the West. You don't find them in India. Because here the scientific understanding and the religious beliefs, etc., they always coexist happily. So, coming back to the point, Bruno was burned at the stake by the Roman Inquisition. We never had anything like Inquisition in our culture, in Hindu culture. Anything like Inquisition. What is Inquisition? The religious head, it's a pyramid kind of a religion, and the person who is sitting at the top of the pyramid will tell you what to think. You should not think independently. Thinking is not allowed. The religious head will tell you what to think. How to think is not allowed. And if what you think goes against what the religious head thinks, then you will be punished. This is the reason why in Europe the philosophers and the religionists have followed two different paths opposed to each other. A philosopher like Bertrand Russell, he wrote a book, Why I Am Not a Christian. Bertrand Russell is a great philosopher, and I put him as a spiritualist. I call him a spiritualist. I have read his books under the problems of philosophy, etc. by Bertrand Russell. He is a philosopher, and he is an Advaiti, if I have to. He is not opposed to the idea of God or anything. He is opposed to only the Inquisition kind of church. So in Ramatirtha's words, he was not opposed to Christ. He was opposed to churchianity, because churchianity did not allow any philosophy to come anywhere near. And there is a conflict between science and religion all the time. So science has to kowtow the religion. The Vatican decides which science is correct and which science is incorrect. When Darwin has published his theory of evolution, see, we had the theory of evolution in India all the time. Kapila was the father of the theory of evolution. In fact, Kapila is called by the Indologists as the Darwin of India, Darwin of the East. But the fact is, Darwin is the Kapila of the West. Now, we never had any problem with Kapila. For us, Kapila is a Maharshi. For us, Charvaka is a Maharshi. Charvaka is a Nastika, but still we call him a Maharshi. And so, there is a total freedom to think. And that's why we have so many schools of thought. The philosophy has flourished so much so, the Vijnana Swami is obliged to write a big book called Sarvadarshana Sangraha, where he collected the number of philosophical thoughts and schools of thought that flourished in the Hindu society through millennia. That was our culture. There was never any conflict between philosophy and religion. Do you know, Buddha, he opposed the Vedic orthodox. He did not oppose Vedas. He did not oppose Vedas. He himself is an Upanishadah. There is no difference between Buddha and Shankara. He opposed. What is it that he opposed? Buddha opposed Vedic orthodoxical ritualism and ceremonialism. Please make note, he opposed Vedic orthodoxical ritualism and ceremonialism. And he used to oppose it openly. And the Vedic people, Vedic orthodoxy, they used to perform their rituals and their ceremonies freely, each to his own way or their own way. There was no conflict, and Buddha's followers did not attack Vedic orthodoxy, and Vedic orthodoxy people did not attack Buddha. Buddha lived to a ripe old age. He left the mortal frame at 85. When Jesus Christ did just the same, what is that Jesus Christ has done? He has opposed the Jewish orthodoxical rituals and ceremonialism. Exactly that is what he is opposed. And what happened to him? We all know. Therefore, there was a wonderful synthesis and a complementation between science and philosophy on one side, and a religion consisting of rituals and mythology on the other side. That is one thing very unique to Hindu Dharma. I am sorry to say, we seem to have lost some of this glory in recent times. Because, can you imagine banning of a book? Banning of a book was, it happened in the times of Inquisition, Spanish Inquisition, etc. So, books were banned. In India, no book was ever banned. In the entire Indian history, known Indian history of 5,000 years of civilization it is, never a book was banned. Charvaka's book was not banned. Kapila's book was not banned. No book was banned. All books have flourished. Only after independence, during Rajiv Gandhi's regime, the first book was banned. That was the first instance when a book was banned just because what that author thinks doesn't coincide with what we think. Such a thing never existed in the Indian ethos. This is one point I wanted to make. Religion, spirituality and science coexisted and complemented each other. In a long history, spanning millennia, there is not a single instance of the scientific temper being persecuted by the religious establishment. Over millennia, you don't have a single instance. That is the glory of Hindu Dharma. I wanted to say one more thing. I was traveling here and there. I noticed in America, in North America, there is a huge controversy between creationism and intelligent design. The universe is an intelligent design is one thesis. No, it was created by God in 7 days. He started on Monday and finished by Saturday or Friday and took rest. That kind of creationism coming from the book of Genesis. So there was a controversy between the two. In the schools, which was evolution, theory of evolution. Should we have theory of evolution in the textbooks or not? No, you cannot have theory of evolution. You can only have theory of creationism, because creationism is opposite to evolution. There is a tremendous controversy in the North America, tremendous controversy. Even now it is going on. Whereas for us there is no controversy. You can have creationism, you can have intelligent design, you can have evolution. Did you hear any controversy of that kind of a nature? Then there is another example, even modern times also. Still, that inclusiveness, still that spirituality, it still runs our society. It is there in our blood. It is there in our DNA, that inclusiveness, that spirituality, which includes all kinds of thought. For example, just 1.5 decades back, it was for the first time that stem cell research was started in Boston. First time. And there was a big hue and cry in the in Americas that, oh come on, you are doing stem cell research, you are going against the dictates of God, you are tinkering with God's design, you cannot do that, there should be a ban on stem cell research. And then the President of the United States, I don't know the full details, he was not sure whether to ban stem cell research or not. But if I remember correctly, please correct me if I am wrong, so there was an effort to stop this stem cell research in the laboratories. This kind of a controversy or confusion or an issue, a problem, did not exist in the Indian scientific community. Here they happily did their stem cell research. Nobody bothers. Whether you do stem cell research or some other cell research, nobody bothers. The religious establishment, it doesn't interfere with research. You can do your research. Maybe we were not so productive in stem cell research for a variety of reasons, due to lack of proper equipment, etc., lack of proper advances, etc. Maybe we did not do wonderful advanced stem cell research, we did not do maybe. But not because of religious establishment, I tell you. Religious establishment had no issue with stem cell research. Maybe some of the government laboratories were not efficient, and there may be some corruption also. Because of such reasons, the research did not take off as much as it should. You may say that, but not because of religious opposition. In fact, religious people don't even know what is stem cell research. So, therefore, the Hindu society has a beautiful, beautiful harmony between ritualism, mythology, and philosophy. Unfortunately, some of that sheen we lost in recent times. I take the courage to say some of the gurus, some of the religious icons, they don't have scientific spirit in them. And they guide the common man, the man on the road in his religious life, they guide him. And they don't have scientific spirit, and they don't have any philosophy in them, because they go together. Philosophy and scientific spirit go together. They don't have that, and they are in ritualism, crass ritualism, and they are in mythology, not understanding anything properly, and therefore they are likely to guide the common people, gullible people, the credulous people in the wrong direction, thereby bringing some disrepute to the Hindu Dharma. That may be there in recent times, unfortunately, and we should overcome that. That is the first point. Second point is Shankara. I have to say something about Shankara. Then the third point I will say and conclude my speech as far as possible within the given time. Shankara, is he a spiritualist or a scientist? He is both. Is he a religionist? No. He is not a religionist. I am sorry to say, our society today, our religious icons unfortunately converted Shankara into a religionist. They have created an unhappy caricature of Shankara in which he is a religionist. He is not the philosopher of oneness, the unifying, he is not the master of unifying philosophy. He is a religionist and worshipping all kinds of sundry gods and goddesses. That kind of a religionist he has become. And then his life, instead of examining and trying to understand whatever is feasible about his life with whatever evidence available. Evidence is archaeological evidence, that kind of evidence can be there, but it is not there. Unfortunately, it is not there. Indian mind is not a genius as far as history is concerned. Indians they did not write history, they wrote Upanishads. They are Upanishadic, not historical. Therefore, we do not have much clear understanding of Shankara's date as well as his life. Then the poets, the religious icons, they took over and created all kinds of silly, meaningless stories about Shankara, and the people started taking the stories literally. They are stories coming from the fertile imagination of a poet with an agenda. The poet with an agenda comes out with a variety of stories, and these stories are taken literally. And therefore, today, the Shankara of the general public, the Shankara that is being celebrated all over the country, today Shankara Jayanti, Shankara is celebrated all over the country. I am sorry to say, I am the only person, it looks like, sitting in a corner, not bothering about Shankara's celebration and all that. But anyway, you have pulled me and put me here and made me part of the celebration. I feel that the Shankara that is being celebrated all over the country, in the South India, North India, etc., lot of that celebration doesn't have anything to do with the Shankara's life history, correct life history, and also Shankara's vision of Vedanta. Very sorry to say this. There are worthy exceptions. Of course there are worthy exceptions. Always they are there. They make Shankara's idol and start doing rituals to that idol. And they tell most ridiculous stories. Anybody with a common sense will laugh at those stories. Such stories they tell about Shankara. And they write, how they wrote poems about Shankara. Poet has so much license. Now the poet has a license. He doesn't have any scientific temper. His understanding of Vedanta is just mediocre, and he has an agenda. He is given a lot of money by one religious house to present Shankara in a particular way, favorable to that religious house. So in that situation, That poet comes out with his own fertile imagination and makes a book called Shankara Vijayam. And how many Shankara Vijayas are there? Do you have any idea? There are 22 Shankara Vijayas. And I am sorry to say, not one of them reflects Shankara's life properly. Therefore, Shankara is not a religious icon. He is a philosopher. He is a scientist. I will explain this very briefly. In the West, there are two schools of thought, realism versus idealism. We have very similar things with us also. In the Buddhist schools, there is realism. They are called Bhagyarthavadis. The outer world, the way we experience it, it is the outer. It is real. That is how some of the Buddhist schools believe. And there is realism in the West. And Haeckel, etc., philosophers, they subscribe to realism. And then there is idealism. What you experience as though in the outside is really not outside. Therefore, outside is not real. The inside is real. So your experience, your sensorial experience, and associated with the mind, the psychological experience. So this psychosensorial apparatus, whatever experience it generates, that is real. This is called idealism. And Shankara, he dismisses realism. He moves towards idealism. In the Hindu society, the idealism is same as the Vijnanavada of the Buddhists. The Bhahyarthavada of the Buddhists is really, Buddhists are Hindu only. In that sense I am telling. Buddhists are not separate from Hinduism. That is another misfortune that people have such a notion. And people consider Buddha as anti-Hindu, anti-Veda. It is the worst thing it is. Buddha is Upanishadaha. Anyway, so Shankara, he dismissed the realism of some of the Buddhists and he adopted the Vijnanavada in his Bhashyas in order to dismiss the Bhahyarthavada. This he says in Dakshinamurti Stotram. I am putting it very briefly. Vishwam pashyate Vishwam darpanadrishyamana nagari tulyam nijantargatam. Vishwam is the Jagat. The Jagat, it is not outside. It appears as though it is outside. It is within you, nijantargatam. And then Shankara has given a hint, an example. I am always amazed, even today I am amazed. I must have studied this Dakshinamurti Stotram a scores of times, but still I am amazed that he gives an illustration that can come very close to modern cinema. What is called movie in the West, movie. What is movie and what Shankara said? You make it movie, you make it mobile, that becomes movie. He said, Darpana Drishyamana Nagari Tulyam, that comes closest to the movie camera discovered by Thomas Alva Edison. The only difference is, Shankara's camera is static, Edison's camera is mobile. That is the only difference. Now, if that doesn't make Shankara a scientist, then who can be a scientist? Darpana Drishyamana Nagari Tulyam. You cannot improve upon it. The only improvement that you can do is the life experience that you experience in the outside is like a movie. There is an improvement. The improvement is moving part of it. Whereas Shankara's example, the movement is not there. Because Darpana is static. Darpana is a lens, and what you have in the movie, it comes from the lens only. Only thing is, what you see on the movie screen, it moves. The scenes change quickly, whereas in Shankara's illustration, the scene doesn't change like in a movie. That is the only difference. But in any case, you cannot improve upon that illustration. That is physics, pure physics it is, I tell you. I don't want to go into further details. So that is the idealism, Vishwam Nijantargatam. Then what is the real? whether the outer is real or the inner is real. Shankara says neither. Neither outer is real nor inner is the real. They are antipodes. Outer is the counterpart of the inner and vice versa. There is no reality either in the outer or in the inner. The reality is beyond the two. But then he adopted idealism only to dismiss realism. Having dismissed realism, he puts aside the idealism also, he puts aside, and he rises to the level of the oneness of Atma. Yes, sakshat kurute prabodha samaye swatmanameva advayam. This is Shankara. The scientist and also spiritualist. What is the spiritualism of Shankara? There is a higher reality. Please hold on to these words, the higher reality. You call it God or Rama or Krishna or by any other name you call it. You may call it Durga or Shakti. The higher reality, it is one without the second, Advayam. And this you have to realize. It is the same in you and me, and it is all in all. This is Shankara. Shankara is not put a vigraham there and do abhishekam. That is not Shankara. That is a caricature of Shankara. This is Shankara. There is a reality. You want to call it God, go ahead and call it. You want to call it Rama or Krishna, you want to give a name to it, go ahead and give it. Upanishads named it with a word which is not a name, like a nameless name. जो नाम नहीं है ऐसा नाम Brahma. And so it is nameless. Still it is given a name. And so that is the God, the spirit. It is also called the spirit. It is called Rama. It is called Krishna. It is called God. It is your essence. It is what is it? Two things about it. That reality happens to be your essence. Means you look at yourself. What is my essence? Who am I? The body, I am not. The mind, I am not. That inner light, that is what I am. That is the higher reality. And the same essence is present in every one of us. In you, in me. Irrespective of caste, creed, race, religion, gender, region, nationality. That the Vishwa Bandhu, in the words of our Prime Minister, Vishwa Bandhu. That is Shankara. That is Shankara, nothing else. Now what happened? We have forgotten that fundamental, essential principle which defines Shankara. We have forgotten it, or maybe we have given some kind of a stepmotherly treatment to it, or we have paid some lip service and put it aside, and we have degenerated into divisions in the Hindu society based on birth, etc., birth and gender. These are the two worst things that happen to Hindu Dharma. Based on birth and based on gender, you discriminate. And all the time quote Shankara. What a misfortune. This is what happened. And therefore, in understanding Shankara, our scientific temper will improve and our spirituality will improve. We become true spiritualists only when we understand Shankara correctly, not by telling some stories about Shankara Vijaya. It is not about making a cinema about Shankara. You have enough movies. I say cinema, you have enough movies. You want one more movie on Shankara? Not necessary. What a movie will tell you? Nothing. The movie maker, he adopts the story into some cinematic thing, and he creates all kinds of silly things, puts some miracle. There are no miracles unless that oneness of spirit, which is God, which is Rama, which is Krishna, by whatever name you want to call it. You want to call it Kali, call it by all means. Durga, you call it. You want to call it God, by any name you call it. That is the spirit. That is the real, only real, Advayam, one without the second. That happens to be your essence, Tattvamasi. You declare to yourself, Aham Brahmasmi. The God that you are worshipping outside is indeed your own hidden self. And it is the same self in your neighbor. It is the same self in every human being. And Shankara said, Chandalostu satu vijostu gururityesha manisha mama. You see, this he may be a Chandala, a particular so-called low caste, or he may, you see, human being is enough. We are all human beings, and ultimately we are that being which is same in all humanity, that being, Brahma, that is what we are. So, the other person may be a Chandala, maybe the so-called lowly person, or even a Brahmana, the so-called highly scholarly person, but one who knows this truth. So, he knows this particular truth. Drudha prajñāsti yasyāpicha. He clearly understands this truth. What is the truth? So, I take the risk of repeating, being repetitive, and tell the real, what you call God, what you are worshipping in all kinds of temples and other places of worship, that real happens to be, look within, it happens to be your essence. It is not something other than you. Understand that. And the same real is in friend, in foe. It is present in every human being. This is Shankara's philosophy. Swami Vivekananda exclaimed, the highest oneness that the human mind anywhere can ever think of was presented in the Upanishads very elaborately and explained by Shankara even more elaborately. And Hinduism, it is shining brilliantly like the sun in the world of nations. There cannot be anything that can come close to Hinduism when it comes to the point of oneness of all. Vishwa Bandhu, that is Hindu. Vishwamitra, that is Hindu. Hindu reaches the zenith of oneness in Upanishads, and at the same time, the same Hindu looks down another person as a lowly person based on birth. The same Hindu. What a contradiction it is. This is how Vivekananda bemoaned. Therefore, when it comes to Shankara, we have to understand a few things. One, he is not a religious icon. It is very unfortunate that all the gurus, with a few of the exceptions, I am repetitive, please excuse me for that. So they have created a caricature of Shankara, which is not the real Shankara. And that is one thing. And the Hindu society should wake up. So Pujya Balasaheb Devaras advised, he exhorted the society, practice samarasata, harmony. That is the need of the Hindu society. And then Pujya Sri Mohan Bhagavatji recently, he was talking on similar lines. It is time that we all come together. So I asked one religious guru, Beti ka rishta, roti ka rishta. Okay, beti ka rishta chhod do. Roti ka rishta we should have. What should be any problem in that? Can you believe? The guru is not ready for it. Therefore, because he considers people lowly, and they practiced political hypocrisy, political correctness. On one side, the Hindu brothers and sisters who were looked down, who were treated badly, they are fed up with us. They lost enthusiasm, they lost their love coming from ages towards our dharma. They are migrating on one side. On the other side, we see the religious heads, the mathas, the pithas, the ashramas, etc., still following the practice of segregation. They are practicing some kind of a political correctness because the constitution doesn't allow them. The law doesn't allow. If they practice segregation openly, the law will come after them. They cannot do it. Therefore, they do it surreptitiously. They do it in a hypocritic way. They still practice segregation. Till the Hindu gets rid of all this hypocrisy, wholeheartedly believes the oneness, wholeheartedly, and practices it, manasa, vachasa, karmana, and then debunks or even throws away the ritualism and the ceremonialism that is coming in the way of unity. The ritual which discriminates from one person to the other person. We don't need that ritual. Give it up. The mythology that talks of divisions, give it up. So in the words of Swami Ramatirtha, Shruti talks of oneness. Shruti gives the clarion call of oneness, Tatvamasi, Aham Brahmasmi. Whereas the Smrutis have destroyed the whole situation. They have created all kinds of divisions, vertical as well as horizontal. And therefore, it is time that we give up all the Smrutis which divide the society and hold on to the Shruti, just like Shankara did. In doing so, we will be reaching the zenith of spirituality and science at the same time. Do you know, even according to science, the DNA of all Indians is the same. Whatever be the caste, creed, race, religion. Therefore, I conclude, the Vijnana Bharati people came to me. I sit in a corner. Something can be done about this? So, Vijnana Bharati people came to me. I am deeply associated with Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh in my life. Even today I declare I am a Swayamsevak. That is how I am. And so I loved them. They approached me. And I have an exhortation, if you don't mind. Please don't entertain segregation, etc. You go after these big religious heads and religious icons, you go to them, and you are very polite and loving and obedient and all that. But I have a complaint. You entertain some heads of some religious icons or heads who practice segregation. Don't do that. Don't entertain segregation. Practice oneness. So you are doing Shankara Jayanti, live the spirit of Shankara. Live the spirit of Vivekananda, the spirit of Ramatirtha. And also let us live the spirit of our beloved Prime Minister. And so that is the oneness. And so with these words, I thank the Vijnana Bharati for giving me this opportunity. And finally, I thank all of you for bearing with me and having the courtesy of listening to my lengthy speech. Hari Om Tat Sat. Shri Krishna.